This week, after the hatred of the pipe bombs and the Pittsburgh shooting, messages of hope from people of faith.
I believe deeply in the power of this country to overcome all of the evil forces that would bring us down. My grandma Fanny came here when she was 16 years old from Russia, a refugee with nothing, and she came here because she knew that America would be the land of opportunity for all people. And I do believe that that Statue of Liberty meant something to her and is inspirational to us today.
This kind of thing constantly raises my own personal awareness to choose very wisely what I say, how I say it.
And my conversation with Shirley Hoogstra, president of the Council for Christian Colleges and Universities.
Only in America do we have the opportunity to steward the greatness of this country for the good of the world.
From the National Immigration Forum, I'm Ali Nirani with Only in America.
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 Only America.
Only in America.
Hours before he drove to the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh and allegedly killed 11 people, the assailant used social media to articulate his anger at HIAS, an organization which protects and advocates for refugees around the world. The, as they were previously known, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society was formed in New York in 1881 to help Jewish people fleeing the pogroms in Eastern Europe. Over its long, courageous history, HIAS has helped resettle refugees from around the world, regardless of their religion. And frankly, nearly every day, I am surprised by the sheer number of lives the organization has touched. In fact, those lives were not just of refugees. They were also lives of the Jewish community across America. Indeed, HIAS worked closely with the Tree of Life congregation in Pittsburgh. The assailant, no, the terrorist, wrote on a social media account, quote, HIAS likes to bring invaders in that kill our people. I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics. I'm going in. On last week's episode of Only in America, as you heard, I chatted with Jonathan Greenblatt, Chief Executive and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League. After the tragedy at Tree of Life, Jonathan wrote in this weekend's New York Times, quote, while the horror of this massacre is shocking, it is not entirely surprising. In fact, just one day before the tragedy, the ADL released a report finding that the number of anti-Semitic incidents in the United States rose 57% in 2017, the largest single-year increase on record and the second highest number since they started tracking this data 39 years ago. Rabbi Jonah Pesner, the director of the Religious Action Center for Reform Judaism, went to Pittsburgh after the shootings. He drew strength from the support of people of all faiths. Rabbi Pesner told NPR's David Green,
let's not forget, David, that in Charlottesville, many people don't remember that same morning, 3 of those white nationalist neo-Nazi thugs stood outside the local synagogue in Charlottesville with assault rifles, threatening. So what we saw as threatening of gun violence a year ago has now become a massacre with gun violence. So the 2 conclusions I draw are that words matter, and rhetoric and kind of this climate of bigoted rhetoric matters. And when the right and the extremists on all sides get emboldened, when white supremacists get emboldened, then they turn to action. And the plague of gun violence in our country, this is what the students were outraged about. These are the same students who, after the Parkland shooting, mobilized on the March for Our Lives and have been working on this upcoming election. And they, in tears, said to me, Rabbi, has nothing changed since Parkland? And I had to reassure them that the arc of history is long, as Dr. King taught, but bends towards justice.
Are you optimistic that we can grow from this?
I believe deeply in the power of this country to overcome all of the evil forces that would bring us down. My grandma Fanny came here when she was 16 years old from Russia as a 16-year-old migrant, a refugee with nothing. And she came here because she knew that America would be the land of opportunity for all people. And I do believe that that Statue of Liberty meant something to her and is inspirational to us today.
Which brings me to Dr. Eric Costanzo, the senior pastor of South Tulsa Baptist Church. Earlier this year, Eric participated in one of the 26 living room conversations we convened across the country. Eric and his son Noah joined us in New York City last week as we've been rolling out the report that came from these conversations. Out of Many One, a defining moment for American immigration. After the briefing, Eric and his son Noah were planning to go to the art museums and, well, enjoy a day together in the Big Apple. But their trip took a turn as they were caught up in the crowds evacuated from the Time Warner building amid one of last week's bomb scares. Here's what Noah told one of his hometown TV stations, Fox News 23 in Tulsa.
At our immigration meeting, they would sit down and listen to you, but then the complete opposite happened with this person.
And in that same segment, Eric spoke to whether you're a citizen or a political leader, words matter.
That hateful, volatile, careless language, where I like to say, adults, you wish adults would just act and speak like adults. It's happening at every level. It's happening from the top down. I do know that this kind of thing constantly raises my own personal awareness to choose very wisely what I say, how I say it.
After a dark week, I choose to draw hope and inspiration from Eric and his son Noah. I'm Ali Nirani.
Support for the National Immigration Forum comes from the James Irvine Foundation, expanding opportunity for the people of California, and from the Carnegie Corporation of New York, established in 1911 by Andrew Carnegie to promote the advancement and diffusion of knowledge and understanding.
My conversation with Shirley Hoogstra took place before last week's mayhem, but the themes she spoke of resonate even more strongly today. Shirley is the president of the Council for Christian Colleges and Universities, a leadership role she's held now for 4 years. Before that, she was the vice president for student life at Calvin College in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Shirley over the last few years. She cares deeply about the institutions and students in her organization and the aspirations of the immigrants and refugees who are a larger and larger part of her community. We talked about the diverse political views among students attending Christian colleges, how international travel and study is turning many of them into world citizens, and how America will benefit from their experiences.
I'm actually from Holland, Michigan, which was at the time a smaller town in, if you look at your hand as a map, on the west side of the state. And my family was an immigrant family from the Netherlands. My dad and his 7 brothers and sisters worked in retail hardware and appliance store. And it was the American dream. After World War II, all of his kids went to college, and then we all got advanced degrees. I practiced law for a time in New Haven, Connecticut, and then got back to higher education for 15 years as a senior leader on a campus. And then I had actually had a lot of my own orientation and professional development through the Council for Christian Colleges and Universities. They do a lot of leadership development, and I was a participant and then a facilitator of those programs. So when it came time for a new president to be hired at the CCCU back in 2014, they said, would you think about applying? And my husband and I thought about it because it has a particular Washington, D.C. setting that would be a relocation. And I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to serve, because it brings together this work right now with the Council for Christian Colleges and Universities, brings together my law background, my higher ed experience, and I feel like I'm really able to work on all cylinders, as they say, right here in this space right now.
So Shirley, take a minute to describe the CCCU membership.
What I say is that each individual campus is given an assignment in their context. So you might have an individual school that's non-denominational, and my organization represents 35 different Christian denominations: Nazarenes, Wesleyans, Reformed, Pentecostals, etc., Baptist. And out of those various kinds of traditions come a particular way in which they would like to infuse both doctrine and a love for God in their curriculum. And so you could have a non-denominational school down in Arkansas. You might have someone that's a Baptist institution down in Texas. You could have a Wesleyan institution in California. They're all doing some of the same things, which is integrating faith into the curriculum. So what does that look like? It looks like every other class at any other school, except what it would say is it would give students an opportunity to ask this question: what does this tell us about God? Because we start with the presupposition that there is a God of a universe, a creator God, and that creator God loves us and wants to know us. And we have a particular advantage of really feeling the joy and hope of belonging and believing in God. And so our classes cover all the same materials, except for the fact that we get to touch the spirituality part of our humanness. In fact, it says that 70% of individuals really want to explore spirituality. And the other piece of our campuses are that they all want to do in-depth moral formation, spiritual and moral formation. So what does that look like? You get to ask those kinds of questions like, what's the purpose of my life? What happens when my life ends? What is the meaning of my work? What's my vocation? Do I just get called out to the best paying job? Do I get called out to a job that might intersect with my passions but doesn't pay that much? Was that a good idea? And then thirdly, our campuses all say, isn't there a bigger global witness to the work that we do? So those are the three markers of all the schools, regardless of whether there's a particular denominational difference. Of those in the United States, we have 147 institutions, like 1,200 students to 16,000 students. They should never look over their shoulder and say, are we like the institution over there? They should say, how am I fulfilling what God has assigned us for this particular place and location in this particular student body? The newspapers just tend to use the word evangelical to mean Christian. But the word evangelical is just a particular kind of belief system that might unify people who generally are just followers of Jesus, people who believe in a God of a universe, people who think that the Holy Spirit, which is a part of the Trinity, is available and informs and infuses our lives. So actually Christians will approach life with either an engagement mentality. They might approach life with a more, I need to be kept safe from culture. But across the board, Christians in different denominations or on different campuses will be living out their faith in particular and unique ways, sharing some common things, but also emphasizing some different things.
And how has the student body of your members changed over the last 10, 20 years?
Back in 1999, our CCCU institutions were 82% majority culture. And today, or in 2015, which is the last time we have these statistics, it's 65%, almost 11% African American. We have almost 10% Hispanic students. And then we have another 10% other, and Asian students make up about 3%. We've changed that demographic, and that doesn't even take into account our international students. So we've just become more diverse. We have the most first-generation students of all of the sectors of higher education. And we're really proud of that because we think that we do a really good job for the student who wants to be successful regardless of their economic place where they start. And we really fashion student success through the kind of small classroom and really intense faculty and staff involvement.
How have immigration issues played out for your membership, particularly with respect to DACA or for the dreamers in the student body?
First-generation students. So CCCU campuses enroll the most first-generation students across the board, right? So we have a fairly sized population of dreamers in our campuses, especially because of where they're located. We have Hispanic serving campuses, and that would include some DACA students as well. And our campuses are places where loving God and loving your neighbor is, sort of delved into and taken seriously. So when you have DACA students that are residing in any state, and we have campuses in 38 states, you might ask yourself, well, how would it be? What would it look like to love your neighbor if this student was a DACA student, needed financial support through institutional support, and could really thrive and be a contributor? Because we know how important higher education is to the well-being of your whole life. And so our campuses have embraced the DACA student. They're hardworking. They bring a new set of experiences. They enrich the classroom. And they, without exception, our DACA students have been significant contributors to the campuses in which they belong. There is a a sense of community on campus that when the immigration came under some, what I'm just going to call instability, like are DACA students going to be allowed to remain DACA students? Are they going to have that status revoked? People on campus knew that there were their classmates and their students that were afraid. So, for instance, we have one student who's a graduate of Southeastern University in Florida, and she has said, I'm going to become an advocate. So when the future of DACA was uncertain in 2017, she actually sent letters to Congress. She shared her story through media outlets. I think she was in the New York Times, the LA Times, and she addressed Congress in person. And today she is been selected to be one of 2 delegates to represent Dreamers at the United Nations. But look, you have to unmask yourself. I mean, the whole insecurity about immigration is, will I be known and found out and then deported? Or will something bad happen to my family? So for a young woman like this, who's now a graduate of one of our institutions, who has a future ahead of her, but is somewhat uncertain, she said, I'm going to stand up, not really only for myself, right, Ollie? She's saying, I'm going to have the courage to be a voice and a face so that those who can't do that will have a voice and a face.
From your perch, how do you see that the student body itself has changed? Not just demographically, but how they see their role within their community, within their state, within the country, within the world. One of the pillars that you mentioned was to be a global witness. How does that take shape in this political environment that we live in?
Well, one of the maybe a misconception about Christian colleges is that they're all Republicans. On our campuses, we actually have statistics that say that there is more diversity between Republicans and Democrats on our campuses, and that really no question can go unasked or debated. I know that our students have become more engaged. This lack of civility that is sort of a marker of our current context, when people speak ill of someone else, call each other names, harass people on social media. This sort of aggressive interpersonal disagreement style is antithetical to the values that we hold on Christian colleges. So they are more engaged by being engaged in the political process, by being engaged with their student organizations, saying, how can we do it differently? And I think it's on many, many campuses, but Christian college campuses really value having speaker series that come in and bring in different points of view. And then the students will engage those points of view, and from a Christian perspective or from a perspective that they've learned in their discipline, actually challenge, like, what does this mean? I think a positive byproduct of some of the negativity that's on the political scene right now is this willingness to say, well, if it's not us, this is our future. Who's going to be part of this and shape it if we're not willing to get involved?
I wasn't planning on talking about political correctness in this conversation, but it is a big part of the debate. I'll be honest with you, I find it surprising and reassuring that Christian colleges and universities are a place where you can actually have a conversation about issues and about different perspectives. So what are the lessons that you would share with other folks, whether it's in education or just broader civil society? How do you have a conversation that somebody may think is politically correct or, frankly, politically incorrect?
I think, first of all, it starts with understanding that we will be people with deep differences. And once you say, I don't expect the person across the table from me to actually believe exactly as I do, but I am going to bring a spirit of hospitality to what they have to say. So the first thing is deep differences exist. Number 2 is hospitality. Number 3 is a sense of curiousness. If you say, well, am I listening to just respond, or am I listening to understand what it is that person is saying? I think that also breeds let's slow down the pace of this exchange. Let me listen harder to what you have to say. And then asking the person that you're even talking with, may we speak candidly about the differences we have while truly listening to understand. That's what I would say are part of the touchstones: curiosity, hospitality, patience, and realizing that you have deep differences. And when you're curious, you actually, again, have to say to yourself, what can I learn? Right? What don't I know? What can I learn? And there is this value that someone might have something to teach you by their experience, but there is this drive for simplicity, right? It's either this or it's that. It's either A or it's B. When actually there is so much that doesn't fit into a particular neat bucket in life, right? Life tends to have ups and downs. It can be messy. It can be uncertain. And here's where I think faith makes a difference. So I believe that from day to day can can be dramatically uncertain. And if you have a faith in God, you often are able to say, look, my life is not certain because of circumstance, but it's because of my anchor in my religious beliefs. And so it allows you actually to live with uncertainty a little easier. The other piece is, I think that there's a forward thinking when you are a person of faith. It's like, I'm not here just to be the status quo. I'm actually here to add to the common good, to make a difference, right? So this idea of nostalgia, let's go back when it was simple. That is not, the nostalgia mindset is not a mindset for people of faith. And because it was never good for everybody, right? And so those things I would really caution people on is I'm just going to call it the illusion of nostalgia.
As you're talking to students and traveling around the country from campus to campus, are there moments when you feel that students have this sense of gratitude that you talk about?
I think they are actually very grateful for the diversity of their lives. The fact that they have people that they're learning with and living with that make their life pretty interesting. I think they're grateful that they have been born in a geography that allows them to generally be safe and have predictable institutions. I think they're grateful that they're in college, that they have the finances to attend college. And I think they're grateful for the fact that they have a future ahead of them because they are able to be in college and have an internship and have professors that care about them and friends that they can have and build for their lifetime.
Now, whenever I've been on the CCCU campuses and talking to the community, there's a sense that there's this connection to the globe, like we were talking about earlier. Maybe it's the size of the campuses, maybe it's the faith orientation, but there is something different that takes place on a CCCU campus in terms of this global context. Have you found that in your experience?
Yes, the global awareness started, and I'll just give you an example from my own organization. So 43 years ago, when the Council for Christian Colleges and University was formed, they also formed 2 semester abroad programs that students from the individual campuses could join collaboratively. And one was in Latin America. And they said, our students, in order to be really prepared for the global life that they will live, they have to go and have an immersion experience there. So if you went on any of our campuses, and today we have these 9 programs that we're in Uganda, we're in Jordan, we're in Oxford, England, we're in Northern Ireland, all places where you could actually learn what I'm going to call deep life skills like conflict resolution and a better awareness of the African continent and the Middle East conflict. And the idea here is if you have an immersion experience where you have to learn about how people in different parts of the world think and act and celebrate and love and enjoy family and enjoy institutions, you're going to be better prepared for what we call, what's your vocation calling? Where are you being asked to go so you can make a difference in the world? And it's not just within the state that they live. It's not just within the United States or Canada. People think that they can be called out. And maybe it's the mentors they've had in their churches that have been all over the world. Maybe it's their faculty members who have studied all over the world. There is just a sense that we're not confined because of God's call on our life. Faith-related people see their lives as bigger than their own immediate imagination. I think you're right. There is almost on every college campus, there is a really well-developed international study program. Sometimes it involves the CCCU programs, but oftentimes there'll be over 100 different programs for students to choose from, and the colleges support it.
So the name of the podcast is Only in America. So my last request, if you will, finish this sentence. Only in America, ... Only
in America do we have the opportunity to steward the greatness of this country for the good of the world.
Thank you so much, Shirley. I really, really appreciate it. It's always just a fabulous time to talk to you.
You're welcome, Ollie. Thanks for having me on your show.
Shirley Hoogstra is the president of the Council for Christian Colleges and Universities. There's more about Shirley's life and work at our website, immigrationforum.org, where you can also subscribe to Only in America. That's all for this week. Thanks to the staff of the National Immigration Forum. The producers are Regina Medina and Emily Chow. The executive producer is Kathleen Farrell. I'm Ali Nirani. See you next time.